Thank you for joining us, and thank you to our sponsors. We're really pleased to have the support of the USDA Forest Service and the Illinois Department of Natural Resources Urban and Community Forestry Program. Their funding supports these workshops and trainings so that we can continue to improve the urban tree canopy and help advance information about trees becoming a Tree City USA partner. So for more information, please check the link below. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Amy Feldman from Friends of the Chicago River.
Thanks, Laura. Let me share my screen. All right, so as most of you all know, when you signed up for this, this is going to be kind of an introduction and demo to the Natural Solutions tool. Oops. There we go. And my name is Amy Heldman, and I work at Friends of the Chicago River. I'm the planning and GIS specialist. So I worked along with Taj, Adam, and Caroline on this tool here in the Chicago region. And I'm going to turn it over to Adam to give a little introduction to Friends of the Chicago River first.
Yeah, thanks, Amy, and welcome everyone. Good afternoon. I'm so glad you could join us. We put so much work into this tool. We're just really excited to be able to get it out into the hands of people like you. So thanks for coming to learn more about it. I'm Adam Flickinger. I am Friends of the Chicago River's Planning Director, and I lead a lot of our watershed and river corridor planning initiatives. Friends of the Chicago River, if you're not familiar with us, is an environmental nonprofit advocacy organization. We were founded in 1979, and our mission is to improve and protect the Chicago and Calumet River system for the benefit of human communities and to protect biodiversity. Sometimes people get confused about our focus area, so we dropped it on the slide, but we work across, like I said, the Calumet and Chicago River systems with all the associated tributary creeks and streams and canals, all the way up into Lake County and out to the locks in Lamont and to the border of Indiana. And we have kind of three focus areas. Some of you have probably participated possibly in some of our education and outreach activities. We have schools programs and volunteers events and things of that nature. We also do quite a bit of landscape restoration and habitat restoration work on natural areas across of our study area there. We work closely with the forest preserves and park districts on that type of work. And then Amy and I work as part of our policy and planning team. So we do a lot of work connected with our agency partners and kind of setting the foundation with policies to improve the health of the river system. And this, we work at many different scales, but the scale that this project came out of is the kind of broad regional watershed scale. And Amy will talk a little bit more about where the idea for this project came from through one of our initiatives.
We'll pass over to TPL to give a little introduction.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, TPL first.
Sure. Hey, everyone. My name is Taj Shotland. I'm the Associate Director of the Trust for Public Lands National Climate Program. I'm based in Vermont, but I get the privilege to work nationally. Been incredibly fun working with the folks in Chicago and developing this natural solutions tool. So just very briefly, Trust for Public Land, we're one of the largest parks and conservation nonprofits in the country. We've got about 30 field offices around the country delivering parks and trails and conservation projects, community green schoolyards. We've been around we're actually celebrating our 50th anniversary this year. The work in the Chicago area is led by Carolyn O'Boyle, who's on, and she can maybe introduce herself in just a second. And I work on our national Land for People lab, it's called. So we are a team of data scientists and climate and health, equity, community engagement, subject matter experts, planners, economists, and we support our field offices around the country so that as we're developing park projects and park planning projects, conservation projects, we're delivering the best possible outcomes. Carolyn, you want to introduce yourself briefly, and then Sarah?
Sure. I'm Carolyn O'Boyle. I'm the Illinois State Director for Trust for Public Land. And it's really a privilege for us to work with our national team on projects like this one because we get to see the local effect. And so we're really excited today to introduce you to this tool and then to stay in touch about how it's useful to you. So that's all I'll say right now. And Sarah, over to you.
Thanks, Carolyn. Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah Wawema. I am the new Climate Project Manager working alongside Taj and our director, Brendan, Shane, on the climate team. I'm very happy to be joining you all here today and to really see TPL's work come alive in Chicago, a place that I've called home for quite some time now. And it's nice to meet all of you. If y'all feel free to reach out to me directly through Trust for Public Land, and I'm looking forward to this conversation. So thank you.
Awesome. All right, I think that's all our introductions. Thanks, everybody. So now we'll get into, I have a couple slides and then we're kind of spending most of the meeting doing the demo, but I just wanted to talk a little bit about the vision for the tool and kind of how it came about. So the tool is a project of our Greater Chicago Watershed Alliance, and this was a coalition that friends and other partners started in 2020, right before the pandemic broke out, but we were able to start this up and we have about 20 current partners. And we really started this with the goal of that cross-jurisdictional collaboration based on stormwater management using the multi-benefit based approach of nature-based solutions. So that's really where this came from. And you can see I have all the logos of our partners on this slide here, many of whom are very active participants in the Chicago Wilderness Alliance. Some of you even might be on this call. Right. And then this is just a slide here where we like to highlight kind of the idea from the vision of how do we identify those areas best suited, the most need, the most opportunity for nature-based solutions. So identifying that vision, and then 18 short months later, we actually had the tool in the hands of our partners and everyone else who we're doing all this outreach for. So it's kind of impressive and we're really proud of that. So we like to highlight that here. And then here, I just like to show a quick timeline, kind of thinking about the process of how the tool was made. And of course, like I mentioned, the idea came from our Greater Chicago Watershed Alliance, and it actually rose out of an early mapping working group, which we had. So that was really a bunch of different GIS analysts, different types of stakeholders that really identified the need for the tool. And then TPL kind of came in and said, hey, we have this tool in other cities, let's do it in Chicago, right? So that's really where it started. And then we did the discovery process, which just involved kind of the boundary-based refining of how do we, how much do we expand it? What sub-watersheds do we include? So that was that conversation. And then the technical advisory team process, that's really where we had these monthly meetings over last summer, and then a little bit into the fall, where we had the local data experts in the room thinking about what data sets need to be in the natural solutions tool, what makes the most sense for the Chicago region. And I want to shout out, I know Mark Johnston, who I don't think he's on this call, but he's very active in the Chicago Wilderness Alliance. So Mark Johnston from the Field Museum and Ted Hefner were very, very active in that. So we appreciate their support on that tool creation process. And then the build phase was really where TPL's technical team could build out the model of the tool, which was the very hefty process of processing all the data. And then lastly, we're in the integrate phase now, which is where we're doing all the trainings and outreach. So we appreciate the Chicago Wilderness for letting us come here today and show you all the tool. All right, and then this is my last slide here, and then I'll pass it over to Taj, but I just kind of want to highlight here the uniqueness of the tool. I'm sure a lot of you here might use JS tools in your daily work scope, but I think we want to highlight kind of the uniqueness of the natural solutions tool. And on the right side, you'll see the boundary, the study area, and that was created throughout the discovery process, which I mentioned. So it is a sub-watershed based boundary, and that was because we really wanted to emphasize the nature-based solution need, right? So thinking about how water doesn't follow those traditional jurisdictional boundaries. And then another uniqueness we like to highlight is the parcel-based analysis, which is very small scale, like a lot of us know, which is super impressive because most tools will look at census block group, and community areas, but this tool is so powerful because it really gets down to that parcel-based scale. So if you're thinking about developments and planning opportunities, it's really great for that. And then also, of course, the multi-benefit based approach is very unique. And you'll see in those colored little squares on the screen, those are the modeling objectives of the tool or our goals for the watershed region here in Chicago. And that's where all the data is under those categories. And then lastly, of course, the uniqueness of local data, local knowledge always makes things more accurate here. And also having those community-based organizations contribute data was really important. We didn't want to make this tool in a vacuum, right? So we wanted to make sure everyone was in the room for the process. So just a couple unique features of the tool, and then I will pass it over to Taj for the demo portion.
Awesome. Thanks, Amy. Let me share my screen. There we go. It looks like you guys can see it. Close that. Before I dive into the demo, just a couple level settings. So I wanted folks to be aware, and Amy alluded to this. So Trustful Public Land has developed similar tools to this in other geographies. So we've had a program now for about 12, 13 years where we've developed over the course of that time, 15 of these types of people and data-driven decision support tools that can help pinpoint both need, where's there a need for green infrastructure, nature-based solutions restoration, where's there an opportunity, where's it suitable for these projects, and then where can those projects deliver multiple benefits. And I was actually just this, I already was telling Amy this and others, just this morning, we were talking to folks in Boston. We had developed a regional decision support tool for the Boston Metro Mayor's Climate Preparedness Task Force to guide their work. And I was highlighting the work in Chicago and why it's been so successful because of all the partners that are engaged, this incredible network that you all have that are using the tool. Folks are excited, they're integrating it into their work. And so A, it's been exciting to see this work blossoming in Chicago, but then B, there's also a lot of opportunity to learn from these other geographies where we've developed similar decision support tools and how they're using it, and vice versa. We can share out lessons and lessons learned from how you all are using it in Chicago and why is it being successful and what are the specific use cases. So lots of opportunity to learn and share nationally through this tool. All right, let's dive into the demo. So this is the project landing page. This is a publicly accessible tool, and Amy or someone can probably post the link to it in the chat. But this is the project landing page. From here, you can access the mapping portal, which we'll do in just a second. You can access pre-made PDF maps. So if you don't want to go into the tool and you want to just create a PDF map that already exists and put it into your slide presentation, you can do that. There's a user guide. There's also a data description tab. Let me open that up. There were dozens, literally hundreds of data sets that went into this decision support tool. And so I helped build this tool. I don't even remember all the data sets that went into it, where we pulled them from, what do they actually mean? And so this data description tab is your best friend, is my best friend in understanding where did this data come from? How was it manipulated, if at all? Were there multiple data sets created, combined to create one sort of overarching data layer? And so here you can scroll through this, and there's both the layer name, which you'll reference into the tool. There's the methodology, and then the data source that you can go track this down yourself if you want to explore the data, excuse me. There's also a brief overview about the partnership. You can see the modeling objectives that we settled on. These were, as Amy mentioned, these were set by the technical advisory teams. This wasn't us coming in and saying, let's develop a tool to prioritize where you can invest in nature-based solutions to deliver health and equity and biodiversity. We came with some suggestions. We shared how others have done it, but then it was really shaped by that technical advisory team that we convened of 20, 30 plus stakeholders. You can learn more about the Watershed Alliance and then Friends of the Chicago River and TPL. So let's go into the mapping portal. So you click on that link and the tool is publicly available, but password protected. So if you don't already have an account, you just click create a new account and it'll take 30 seconds. You'll get an email sent to you, verify your email address, and you'll be set up with an account. And that's just so that we can track how many people are using it. And then for data licensing, because as you'll see, the tool goes all the way down to the parcel level, which not a lot of GIS-based tools that at sort of this wide regional level do that. And so for our data licensing, we have to have this we have to have folks create a user account. So I'm going to log into the decision support tool. And here is the tool. Here you can pan left and pan right, just like in whatever mapping tool you use, maybe Google Maps or GIS software that you use. You can change different base maps. And then on the left are different ways to analyze the data, different tools or widgets, ways to analyze the data from a bunch of different ways. Let's start with using the tool, imagining you have a project. You're already identified a place that you're working and you want to understand the climate and health and the equity and the green infrastructure data for your parcel. So I'm going to plug into the search and address. And then we're going to zoom in. Now, if you want to get a better sense of what's happening here on the ground, you can change the base map. And let's go with imagery, and you can start to see the area here, satellite imagery, and all of these purple polygons, all of these little these purple areas represent individual parcels. And so you can click on any of these parcels. So for example, here, and pull up all of this climate data, health data, green infrastructure suitability data around impervious surface, tree canopy, stormwater, biodiversity data, active transportation data, equity data, and you can scroll through. Is it a priority? Is it in a heat island? Is it in a census block group that has significant health issues, stormwater issues? And then if you've decided this is a parcel that you want to explore further, you click Create Parcel Profile Report, and it will generate a 5 or 6 page PDF that has all of this data and more. And it takes about 30 seconds or so to create the parcel profile report. So I already have one pulled up to save us a little bit of time. And Amy, do you want to share a little bit about why you guys are specifically interested in this parcel as I scroll through?
Yeah, well, of course, as you see in the image right there, it's right along the Little Calumet River. So of course, us at Friends saw that as a parcel for opportunity right along the river system. But when you look at the parcel report, I think it's important to try and kind of see the narrative behind the data that you're seeing, like what's the opportunity for this parcel, what data layers show the need for investment, things like that. And as you explore this parcel report, there's a couple points that we pulled out where it had a lot of biodiversity presence. I know the imperiled species richness was there, which just means that there's species there at risk for extinction on the parcel. So thinking about advocating for this type of land use would be really important if there was a project going up on the parcel. And I know it also had points on public health need and equity need. So thinking about maybe doing a project of recreational opportunity as well as protecting the existing habitat there. But yeah, I just think it's important to really think about, what is this parcel report telling us along with the data that's shown. So that's just something that we saw at Friends. So, yeah, thanks.
Awesome. Thanks, Amy. And I think folks, maybe I see the chat. I don't see the messages, but I see that we have a bunch of activity in the chat. And so Amy, feel free to chime in. We have dedicated time for a Q&A, but if there are questions that we should pause and answer as we're doing the live demo, just let me know, Amy. I defer to you on that though. All right, so let's go back to the decision support tool. So that's if you have a place that you're already working, you want to zoom in, you want to pull up a parcel profile report, and you could use it in a grant report, right, to quantify why you're working there, what is the equity considerations, what's the biodiversity, and use it in public outreach. We've had community groups show up to planning board meetings, holding up a report of a planned development saying, actually, here's a report that shows it's a heat island. There's not enough tree canopy coverage. Here's the data as part of this new development. We want more green space. So there are lots of different ways that you can use these PDF reports to tell the story, as Amy referred to, of an individual parcel. So let's zoom back out to the project geography and turn the base map back. Let's turn it to there. So let's zoom out. So now let's say you don't have a specific place that you already are working, and you want to understand maybe where should you be working to be most strategic and that has the most need. So let me just refresh this really quickly.
Oh, to get rid of you had to do the X on the magnifying glass.
Oh, is that
bar.
what it was?
Yeah. I always forget to do that. So
I was like, yeah, I was trying to remember how to get rid of that. Okay, so on the left, here you can see the modeling boundary. So the data is for this geography. And on the left are different ways to analyze the data as I referred. And starting with the analysis results. So the analysis results are a combination. If you want to identify the priorities for connecting, for protecting against flooding, improving and protecting biodiversity, equity, and health, the moderate, high, and very high priority locations, if you want to put all of these together and identify those highest priority multi-benefit need and opportunities, you click overall stacked priorities, and you start to see throughout the region where are the highest priority locations. And then you can zoom in, and you start to see some of these priorities. Now, if you don't want to look at overall stack priorities, but let's say you want to look at health priorities, on their own. You could start with, let's just look at daytime heat islands. Where are the most prominent heat islands? We know nature, greenery, urban greenery, nature-based solutions are really effective at providing cooling benefits. You can see throughout the region where are the hottest spots throughout the region. You could look at mental health data. So nature is really important for one's mental health. Getting out for an afternoon walk, so you're not staring at your computer, really important for one's mental health and well-being. So you can start to see where are the priorities, the census block groups throughout the region where folks are reporting poor mental health. Look at tree canopy. So you can click through each of these individually, and for each one of these, you'll see the same sort of color gradient from moderate to very high priorities. And I won't click through each one of those health ones. There's also equity data. So similar to health, sorry about that. There we go. Similar to the health, you can look at different equity indicators that our local technical advisory team helped us settle on, or you can look at them combined. So communities of color, plus linguistic isolation, unemployment, disinvested community, life expectancy. You could look at them all combined to see where the moderate, high, and very high priority locations for addressing equity. Last but not least, I won't click through each of these, but protect. So protecting against flooding. And we can either look at stormwater runoff in urban areas, for example, and you could turn on each one of these, or you could look at protecting against riverine flooding, turn each of these on, or you can look at the overall priorities for protecting against flooding. So let me turn these off. So those are the analysis results. You can spend a lot of time exploring each one of these buckets. Simply by clicking on the folder, it expands, and then selecting this and expanding the legend. Now, the overlay data are raw data sets that we compile, basically contextual information that provides important information as you're honing in on, all right, where are the moderate, high, and very high priority locations for each of these objectives? Then you might want to get into the raw data that can help you understand what's really going on at that parcel. How hot is it really? What's the tree canopy percentage, for example? So the overlay data, you click on the little folder to expand it, and you see the same buckets around connect, protecting flooding, biodiversity. And then you also see green infrastructure considerations. So this is a ton of green infrastructure suitability data that can help you understand what's going on in that parcel, and will a green infrastructure project, nature-based solution project, actually be feasible? So you can see here, we have tree canopy cover data that shows where the highest priorities based on the CRTI canopy cover priority analysis. There's higher resolution tree canopy data, 5-meter resolution, so super high resolution data where you can see where the actual trees. There's vacant land data, elevation data, park need, lots of interesting information that you can go in and explore. I will click on just a couple other of the overlay data. So we also have biodiversity data. So you can go in, you can see a lot of familiar data sets, most likely. So you can see undeveloped stream buffer priorities, core wetlands. And I'm not going to click through each of these, but you can start to see the types of data, biodiversity data that we have, corridor data, as well as the imperiled species richness. I'll just click briefly so you can see throughout the area where the highest concentrations and densities of imperiled species. Last one that I'll highlight briefly, the overlay data, we have transportation, so active transportation data. So data around existing trails. You can see all the different trail types throughout the region. Zoom out a little bit further so you can see the whole study region. You can see the different types of trails and then the status of different trails. Are they planned? Are they existing, proposed, programmed, et cetera? A ton of information between the overlay data and the analysis results. I'll pause there. Amy, anything that we should pause to discuss before I continue on?
No, I don't think we got any more questions, so all good.
All right. Let me turn off the trail data. So If what I've covered so far is completely overwhelming, I completely understand, right? It's a lot of different ways to get at the data. Data scientists, GIS professionals can probably look at this and say, yeah, I can have a general sense of how to do this, but it is, I recognize, complex. There's a lot of power to the tool, but it's also sometimes can be challenging to use. And so one of the simplest ways to use the tool, I think, is through this custom scenario tool. So you just click this little drop-down arrow, you pull this up, and you click scenario layer visible. And now it's just a series of slider bars that you can use to set your own priorities. So you could say, my priority is biodiversity. I want to see those priorities. I'm going to drag that slider bar to 10. That's most important to me. I want to increase biodiversity in areas where protecting biodiversity can also help improve public health, but maybe that's not quite as important to me. Let's say drag that to a 4, zoom in a little bit more. And then maybe you want to address equity, hopefully. So drag that slider bar up. Maybe that's is equally important as biodiversity. And you see the map continues to shift. Maybe you also want to prioritize absorbing stormwater runoff. Usually there's funding associated with managing stormwater. So let's drag that slider bar. And you see the map continues to shift. And the darker the orange is the higher the priority based on your custom analysis. So anyone can go in, I think relatively easy, use the slider bar. You could play with it for hours, setting your own objectives and then honing in on the priorities throughout the region where a project can help you deliver these outcomes. All right, I'll turn the scenario layer off. A couple other features to highlight before we stop for Q&A. The query data feature. So I would say what I just showed, that custom scenario tool, is one of the easiest to use, probably one of the most sophisticated, maybe challenging, but we'll go with sophisticated uses of the tool is through this query feature, where you can find parcels that meet your specific criteria. So we could say, for example, let's look at parcels that are in Summit. So I'm going to select municipality. I'm going to click on the value and I'm going to scroll down to Summit. So show me parcels in Summit, and I'm going to add that condition. And then let's look at vacant parcels in Summit. So we're going to go to green infrastructure considerations. We're going to go down to vacant. We're going to add that condition. And then let's look at vacant parcels in Summit that are also in an area with health challenges, public health challenges. We'll go down to health and we'll scroll down and we'll add health stacked priorities and we'll add that condition. And then we can run the query. And what will come back, there we go. I clicked it twice. What comes back is all of the parcels that meet your criteria that you added there. And you saw I chose, search error. I chose just a handful of criteria. There's hundreds of criteria. You can build a really custom analysis, bringing equity data, green infrastructure suitability data, a whole bunch of different information. And then here, you see each of these blue polygons is a parcel that matches your criteria that you've created there. And so here, there are about 77 parcels that meet your criteria. And you could go one step further even and say, all right, actually 77, that's too many. Let's look at parcels that are a certain size. And so you would say acres, let's look at parcels, change it from equal sign to greater, parcels that are greater than 1 acre. Now I'm going to run the query again, and it will refine it to 11 parcels that meet your criteria. And you can see all of that data summarized about those parcels in this tab, or you can go down and click on an individual parcel. And we planned this out. This is another parcel of interest. And so you can click on that parcel and bring up a report that talks about it, that brings all of this data around this parcel. Amy, do you want to talk a little bit about why we were honing in on this parcel?
Yeah, so I know Friends, we were in connection with some of the leadership in the village of Summit, and they were even interested on doing a project along the Chicago Sanitary Ship Canal. And it was interesting to go back to the tool after that, after those conversations and think about, okay, what's the data showing for this parcel? And it was cool to see again some biodiversity layers showing the need to protect a lot of biodiversity there. And again, the community health priorities and things like that to really show the need for investment. And I do want to say, I think the powerful aspect of the query tool is maybe you have all these different, criteria for a project. And I know a lot of groups now are really focusing more on green infrastructure. So it's a really great opportunity to think about where those needs are. And I know the Chicago Wilderness Alliance has that group called Prioritizing Green Infrastructure. So maybe something that goal group could use for their work. But yeah, it's a very sophisticated, powerful tool. So we have fun exploring it as well. So yeah.
Awesome. All right. So the last thing, if folks are still with me, hopefully, there is a powerful function in the tool. So let me back up. We've explored how to use the tool. If you have a specific parcel where you're working and you want to pull up, you just click in the search and you zoom in and you can pull up all the data. Through the query tool, you can hone in on specific parcels that meet your criteria. Through the overlay and the analysis data layers, you can understand at a big sort of regional macro level, where are the priorities, the neighborhood level, the regional level, and then zoom in, zoom in, zoom in, and get down to that parcel level. All of those features so far are about getting need and opportunity. One of the cool features, the 10-minute walk impact report, allows you to get at impact, who's actually going to be served by a project. And so let's type in Dan Ryan Woods, one of the forest preserve properties, and then we can zoom in. There we go. Oh, where did it go? There we go. You can zoom in here, and then you can draw a polygon around this parcel to understand the demographics of who lives within a 10-minute walk of this parcel. And so you would click this, you would draw a polygon around it. This is going to be a pretty crude polygon for right now. For time, you can see, there we go. And then you double click and it's complete. We can click, this is test. And then you click tap to run analysis. And it takes a couple minutes, 2-3 minutes to create a PDF report. And so I already have it pulled up on a separate PDF. I ran it beforehand. And it provides all of this information, where the proposed and potential access points for it, what are the demographics for population and households of folks that are served by this park, the income, the age. And again, Amy, I know you've looked at this for some other projects. Do you want to provide some additional context as well?
Yeah, I think we thought this was an interesting report because there's so many dynamic features with the 10-minute walk report. So for example, I know we were excited at Friends to kind of think about when the tool came out, oh, let's draw some shapes around some existing projects. You could see who those are serving. So there's many different ways to go about it. So for this example, it may not be a new project, but maybe you just want to see some of those existing green spaces and seeing who is being served by that 10-minute walk. So this is really interesting for, again, thinking about, I know there's the Chicago Wilderness Group of increasing equitable access to nature. So this is a really great example of thinking about who is being served by these green spaces, what groups, the population demographics, things like that. And then another way to go about the tool even is just maybe there isn't a project there yet, but you want to think about who could be served by that. So there's many different ways to do this tool, but I think this was just an example that we thought could be interesting to start thinking about. Maybe everyone here has some projects that they would be interested in thinking about who's being served by those now. So that's kind of the powerful nature of that aspect.
Perfect. All right. I think we've covered the majority of the tool. There are also some different features here that I'm not going to cover right now, but you can create bookmarks to save locations. You can pull up Google Street View. You can measure distances if you're looking sort of at the local parcel level. But that, I think we covered the key features of the tool and the different ways to analyze the data, why you would use the different tools. Yeah, I'll pause there. Carolyn, Adam, Amy, anything to add before we move to a Q&A?
No, I think you covered it all.
Yeah, I think
All
that was
right.
great. I will just add to what Amy said about the last two examples. Both the parcel reports and also those walk reports are really useful because I know some of us on the call are associated with nonprofit. It's very useful in being able to articulate impacts and both positive and negative. So if you're thinking about advocacy, but also for funding requests, we know we've been working with some of our partners and providing some of those parcel reports and walk reports to talk about like a section of the river and or a section of a community, and to be able to illustrate, you know, who this project could potentially impact, you know, either way. And that's something that's becoming more and more important to some of these federal infrastructure and other types of green infrastructure funding opportunities. So that's a great application of the tool.
Agreed.
All right. Feel free. I know we have some time for questions. So if anyone wants to unmute themselves, or else you could put it in the chat, we can answer it as well. I know this is a lot, like Taj mentioned, so I'm thankful that Laura's recording this. So I think this is a great chance you could go back to the video recording and kind of rewatch this as well. So.
A lot of information available in here. It's incredible.
As folks think about questions that they might have for us, whenever we lead these trainings, I'm always curious to hear why people joined and sort of the projects that you have going on, and what was it about this tool that sort of sparked your curiosity, and why were you thinking that maybe this tool could be helpful for your work? If anyone's interested in sharing, I would love to hear that.
Ooh, we got a question from Jeff. How do Chicago datasets compare with other regions where the tool has been implemented? I guess this might be a Taj question.
Good, good question. There's a lot of great data and planning that's already been done in the Chicago region that we were able to integrate into this tool. There are places like LA where we developed a tool where there was also a considerable amount of local data that we were able to incorporate. But then places like Camden, New Jersey, a smaller, under-resourced community, didn't have nearly this amount of high quality, high resolution local data. So it varies, but yeah, we were impressed as we were developing this tool, the work that's already been done in the region that we could then pull in, integrate, sometimes combine with other data sets to be able to tell a really accurate story with the data.
Yeah, and I would just say we definitely were able to build off some of the work, you know, with these other groups like Chicago Wilderness Alliance, and you saw that the green infrastructure vision layers were also included in there, and other layers that we could build off. So that was really great to have that to start with.
Ooh, yeah, Jeff, go ahead. You can unmute. I see your hand.
Yeah, I'll just go ahead and describe some of the ways I'm very excited about it. This looks great, but I'm coordinator for 2 watershed groups in the Chicago area. I think one is completely within the geographic area. I think one might be borderline. But I see a lot of opportunity to do some updating and perhaps some truthing of site-specific projects that are listed on our watershed plans that might now be several years out of date. Also, a map like this could be a really helpful tool in a meeting with a landowner or an agency, a landowning agency, to, you know, get them excited about some of the capabilities and possibilities of doing projects on their land. So that's, I think, just a couple of top of mind ways in which I could see using this.
I love those examples.
Yeah, thanks so much for sharing. I also I see your map behind you of your watershed.
Oh, yeah.
But I appreciate you sharing. And also, I do think we want to remind everybody that we are going to be doing a tool update in the near future. So if you sign up for the tool and you have any additional data sets, like Jeff, I'm sure you probably are aware of some. And if you want to see those included in an update, if you sign up for the tool, you'll get a survey. So you could suggest some additional data that you think would be helpful for your watershed groups.
Well, unless somebody else has their hand up, I'd like to keep going. The tool currently available in open source. Anybody can use it.
Yeah, it is. Oh, sorry. I don't know if you're all going to answer.
Go for it, Amy.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I put the link in the chat. I can do it again, but it is completely open now and it's free and accessible. It's just you have to create an account. So that just takes about a couple seconds, but that's just so we can track the usage and things. But yeah, feel free to share the link with anyone you know. Yeah, completely free and accessible.
Thank you. Very, very good.
If there's not any other questions, actually, I might prompt Adam. Do you want to share a couple ways that we at Friends have been using the tool just to kind of give some more context?
Yeah, I can talk about, so one example, I started talking about advocacy because that's something that we do, but there was a site along the South Branch of the Chicago River called the Damon Silos. That's a state-owned property and it went up for sale. And there was a lot of concern about its future and with some of the local community organizations. So, we use the tool to help give them resources and kind of used it as a way, like I said before, to tell us a more complete story about the potential future of that site and who it impacts and things like that. And it was very useful in helping to bring together kind of a coalition of people. And we used the data in the letter that we sent to the state and ways that way. So it's been useful for us to be able to connect some of our kind of bigger mission areas that are biodiversity focused to other things that we care about, but that we're not experts on, like public health issues. And now we can talk about that really specifically and use that in the way we talk about our projects. So that's the real power of it.
So thanks. Oh, I see, Jeff, you have your hand raised. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is one that I could answer myself, but when you were doing the case study, I think it was Summit or an adjacent community, the publicly owned and protected parcels didn't seem to be lit up. So I wonder whether they're included in the tool and how they, what kind of analysis could be done in those areas.
Yeah, one thing we noticed about when using the tool is we used the publicly owned property data from the Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning that tracks regionally the land uses. And we do know that they recently updated that layer, but it happened before we finished the tool. So there are some discrepancies and things that I think are a little bit out of date because they only do that, I don't know, maybe it's a longer time frame update. So that's one thing that we will be looking into with when we make the adjustments to the tool at the end of the year, is updating that layer because I think it's a little bit out of date.
Thank you. And then my follow-up is, I think you're already answering that. Is there a process for updating?
Yeah, I can speak to that. So we're committed to doing annual updates to the tool to keep it using the most recent, accurate, best data. So the process will send out a survey. So everyone that's registered to use the tool will send an email blast out probably in the next month or so, asking folks how they're using the tool, what data sets they're using, are there new data sets that they want added, and are there existing data sets in the tool that they want updated. And then we'll compile all that information. We'll do our own due diligence to track down, look at the data that we have, what we think should be updated, and then work to get that data into the tool. So yeah, it'll be an annual process. Good question.
I'm going to go again. I'm associated with a group called Chicago Living Corridors, and we have a map with data sets from various conservation organizations that show residential parcels that have sometime in the past been restored or planned, used native plantings or restoration work. Is there some, first of all, are those layers included? And secondly, is there some proxy for that information that would be updated more conscientiously than Chicago Living Corridors is doing at the moment?
I don't believe those data were included in the tool. I don't have a good answer. Adam or Amy, do you have thoughts on that question?
I'm familiar with the map. I think it's really cool. And I actually would love to follow up with you and talk more about that data because so Friends has done more work on habitat corridor planning and things like that outside of the natural solutions tool, just for our own kind of strategic planning around that topic. But that would be something we should look at, that data, and even if it doesn't make sense for this tool, it would be a great resource maybe for some of our work too. So we'll follow up about that if you don't mind.
I'm very happy to. I'll put my email in the chat.
Great.
Jeff, do you know did you give that data layer to Mark Johnson, the field for the hub, for the Chicago Wilderness Hub? I believe it's.
I've only recently gotten involved with the organization, so I haven't, the answer is I don't know.
Okay. I can follow up with Mark.
That'd be a great place for that too.
Yeah, we're very thankful for the hub. I think, as Adam mentioned, that was a good starting place for us. So we appreciate the upkeep. I know Mark's not here, but I think he knows he's doing a great job with that. So. Right.
Okay.
Oh, I think we have a question maybe for Jeff in the chat about the living corridors, how to get involved. Awesome. Any other questions, comments? Otherwise, I did put we have an email at naturalsolutionstool@chicagoriver.org that I just put in the chat. So feel free, if anyone has any more questions on the tool or wants to have a follow-up conversation, you could email us there. And I will also put in the chat, we do have another opportunity in July called an advanced topics workshop. So if anyone here today starts exploring the tool on their own and they have some specific questions they want to ask this same project team, we're all going to be at this meeting at the end of July, and I'll put the link in the chat right now. So if you want to sign up for that, that will be more of a discussion around how to use the tool within your own scope of work. So feel free to join that and sign up. All right.
Yeah, I just want to thank everyone for joining and learning about the tool, and definitely reach out if you have questions. But Laura, I think back to you, or maybe we can just wrap up.
Yeah, I think we can go ahead and wrap up, but thank you so much for this very informative cafe.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having us. And thanks to everybody for coming.
Yeah, like I
Take
said,
care,
this will be
everyone.
recorded and shared on our website.
Awesome. Thank you.